Hi, welcome to Microbiology. My name is Dr. Becky Boone, and I'm going to be your instructor for this course. At any point in time during the semester that you need to reach out to me, I can be found in my office on the Grand Strand campus in Building 200, Room 110, or you can call me on the phone at 843-349-5274 or through my email at becky.boone@hgtc.edu. I do try to respond to students within 24 hours of receiving their message, so if you have not heard back from me and it's been 2 days or more, please reach back out. I do hold office hours every week, and I do that on Wednesday evening from 5 to 5:30. I can meet with you on Teams online during that time, or I'm also in my office if you want to stop by. Now, I do know it's an online course, and I also know that this time may not be convenient for all. So if you need to meet any other time and you want to come into the office, or if you want to meet online, please just send me an email and we can find a good time to meet. Speaking of emails, I do prefer that you use the becky.boone@hgtc.edu over the D2L email. That is so that I can get those emails as quickly as possible and get back to you. I will communicate to you through your HGTC email as well, and that's just because of the limited capacity of the D2L. Please, if you have been taking courses with HGTC for a while, do go into your D2L emails and clear out and delete old emails to open up that email box again, just in case if I or any other instructor needs to reach you through that method. Attendance policies for both lab and lecture. We do follow the college's 80% rule. Therefore, if you miss more than 2 labs or more than 2 weeks of lecture, you will be dropped from the course. So if you miss 2, then on the 3rd absence from either lab or lecture, you'll be dropped from the course. Now, how do we determine attendance for the course? You have to complete an academic activity. So there are separate attendance books for lab and lecture. So you have to do at least 1 lab activity to be counted that week for being present in lab, and you have to do 1 academic lecture activity in order to be counted present for lecture. Now, the week starts on Monday morning and it ends at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. So you need to look and find those quizzes or a checkpoint, which is your homework assignments. It could be doing a virtual lab. It could be doing a pre or post test for lab, but it has to be one of those graded assignments in order for you to be counted as being present that week. So let's talk a little bit about the assignments for lecture, and then we'll get into lab. So in lecture, we have 5 units, and those are going to consist of a final exam, unit exams, and then weekly homework. So in each of those units, you will have 2 to 3 weekly assignments for lecture. You're also going to have 3, 4, 5 weekly assignments for lab, and we're going to discuss those in just a minute. But there are a lot of small assignments, and so you'll find that each week I break down what's due in lecture and what's due in lab. So in lecture, each week you need to look in the modules, you need to look for week 1 for the lecture and do the assignments. So for each unit there are 2 to 3 chapters. Each chapter you have a reading assignment. Each chapter you're going to have at least 1 checkpoint, which is what I call the homework, because that's going to be short answer, that's going to be matching, that's going to be sequencing type questions to make sure that you understood the reading materials. You're going to have PowerPoint lectures that you can go through, and I do voiceovers on those, so you can listen to those as well. And then after you've done your readings, after you've done your watching your lecture videos, once you've done your homework assignments, which we call checkpoints, then for each chapter you will have a quiz that you need to complete. And then once you've done all of the unit materials, then the test will open and you will have a unit exam that's going to contain information and questions from all 3 chapters within that unit. Now, not every unit has a Dropbox or discussion questions in them, but several of them do, so do be looking for those as well. If it is a discussion post, please read the instructions carefully and look to see what the discussion post is asking you to do. It may be giving you specific instructions about what your post needs to include. It may have you review some of your fellow students' posts and respond. It may have you upload an image or a document as well. So please just read through those and make sure you fully understand what the discussion is asking before you submit. So again, in lecture, 5 units, Every week you're going to have 2-3 assignments between quizzes and homework assignments, possibly discussion. You will have to watch videos, and you are going to have some reading materials. Let's talk a little bit about lecture exams. There is an exam for each and every unit, so you're going to have 5 exams. Those exams are taken through D2L, but they have to be proctored. And so when we talk about proctoring, you will use one of the 2 methods for proctoring. One is known as HonorLock, which is an online platform that you can do from home, or you can use the testing center. If you use HonorLock, you must register for HonorLock. There is an $18 fee per course, but that fee covers all exams, and in the case of microbiology, it covers all your exams and everything from both lab and lecture. So it's one fee, and it covers the entire course for the semester for any HonorLock assignment. When you take your first HonorLock exam, I will have a little bit more of a specific video for you to remind you of some of the things that you'll need to do, such as your room scan, having your IDs, etc., and how to ensure that that is done appropriately so that you're not being stopped during the middle of the exam, or so that it's not being flagged as having a code violation. Exams in the lecture, they open on Wednesdays and they close Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So please make sure you're logging on in enough time to take that exam before it closes out. The final exam is going to be a cumulative exam. More information will come as we get closer to the final exam on that, but it's going to be cumulative, covering the content of the course from week 1 all the way to week 15. It is 100 questions, and it is multiple choice and true false as well. The test, and I mentioned this, but a little bit just more about it. Each of the unit exams is going to have 50 to 75 questions. The unit exams are going to have true, false, multiple choice, possibly short answer, matching, might even have some sequencing. All the material for the unit exams is going to come from what you find in D2L for that unit's materials. So the reading materials, the lecture and PowerPoint voiceovers, the quizzes you take, and the homework, all of that is where the information for your unit exams comes from. Unit exams, as I said, are proctored, so it is not an open book. They are the questions are given to you 5 at a time. You answer the 5, you submit those 5, and then you move to the next 5. You're not able to go back and forth between the questions on the exam. So do take your time in those exams, read carefully, and if you have any questions at all, just let me know. When it comes to exams, after the exam closes, I then review all of the stats and determine if there was a question that may not have been written well, or if possibly there was a wrong answer or something may have gone wrong, and then at that point in time, if I have to throw out some questions, you might see some adjustments in your grade. Also, if it's short answer or has something that D2L can't grade automatically, then I will have to go in and grade those. So just when your exam closes out, if you're taking it at the testing center or through HonorLock, if you look at that grade, just recognize that your grade is most likely going to go up after I've gotten into it and done the manual grading that needs to be done after the exam closes. Assignments and due dates. The due dates are all provided in D2L. Everything closes on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. I don't open up assignments. When we get here to the lab in just a minute, you'll realize there's a lot of components in lab, just like there's a lot of components in lecture. So if you miss some things, one assignment here or there, it's not going to kill your grade, and I'd rather see you keeping up and moving forward than trying to go and make up some assignments. When it comes to the exams, the same thing holds true. I do not allow for you to make up a missed exam, but I do drop the lowest exam grade. So if something comes up, you become ill, something happens with work, something happens with your children, and you miss an exam, do not panic. You will see a 0, but at the end of the course, that 0 will get dropped and not calculated. Let's talk a little bit about the lab assignments. Just like in the lecture assignments, each week of lab has lots of little things to complete. So in lab is going to be completed between D2L and the platform known as Connect. It's a McGraw-Hill virtual lab simulation platform. So each week, start by going into D2L. In D2L, you're going to find the readings for lab. So the lab assignments, you'll see each of those as a PDF document. Then you will see the links to Connect, which is the virtual simulation platform. So you can click directly from D2L and get into that platform. and move around in the platform. And then your quiz at the end of the lab week is also going to be in D2L. So you're going to have readings, you're going to have virtual simulation labs, and you're going to have a quiz. Now for the virtual simulation lab components, you'll actually have the lab that you have to complete, but you also may have a pre-lab or a post-lab exercise to complete, as well as the simulation. Not every lab has a pre and not every lab has a post, but you're going to have for each lab exercise 2 to 3 items to do. And some weeks you have 2 to 3 labs to do. So as you can see, there will be lots of little things each week. Now, in addition to your regular lab assignments, there are some special things that we have to do in lab. You have a couple of projects. Those projects, you'll get more information about them as we get closer to those weeks. And during the fall semester, it's weeks 9 and 12, which have special projects. The Kirby-Bauer project, which is an antibiotic resistance, and then you have an unknown. Those, when the time comes, you'll see in the news items that I'm telling you to check your HGTC emails, because I need to email you each your assignment, your specific bacteria, whatever it is. So do pay close attention those weeks to your HGTC emails. In addition, it is microbiology, so all students must demonstrate microscope proficiency. That is where you have to record yourself going through the parts of the microscope, and that is handled through a platform known as Bongo. That occurs in week 4. So during week 4, your lecture and voiceover PowerPoint there for week 4 will walk you through how to do the Bongo app and how to do your microscope proficiency. Just going ahead and making you aware of that. And then, just like in the lecture, there is a final exam in lab. That does occur in week 13, and it is what we know as the practical, and it's cumulative. So it's going to cover everything from lab 1 to lab 12, and I'll give you a good review for that. As part of an online class at HGTC, students have to verify their who they are through their identity verification. All this means is that you're going to have to take your ID, take a picture of it next to your face, and then upload that into a Dropbox so that we can verify who you are for this course. Until you complete an orientation quiz and this ID verification, the course materials will not open. So please make sure you look at the Dropbox and read the rules and upload your ID for this. We also verify ID throughout the entire semester with each of your unit exams and with your practical and the final exam. All 7 of those exams require you to present ID, so please keep that in mind as well. Student code of conduct for both lab and lecture. We do have an expectation that you as the student are doing your own work. Even though in lab and in lecture there are things that have open book, multiple attempts, no time limits, etc., when you are completing those assignments, the expectation is that you're doing it individually. You can use your textbooks, you can use your internet, you can use whatever, but you're not using others to complete those assignments. Make sure when it's time to take your first proctored exam, if you're using HonorLock, that you read those instructions very well so that you know what is acceptable and what is not, so that we do not have to throw out any exams. For instance, when we get to that week 3, and I will give you a video on that, as I've already mentioned, you're not allowed to wear hats or dark glasses when using HonorLock. You have to do a nice clean room scan, those kinds of scenarios. Please, when you're doing lab work or lecture materials, if you're doing discussion boards, if you're writing it for a project, that you are using your own words, or if you are using something that you researched and you're using some ideas or words from others, that you are giving it credit. I know there's a lot of use of generative AI in that text, such as ChatGPT and Copilot. Some assignments I allow for those, others I do not. So please make sure that you are reading the instructions carefully. Written assignments are submitted through a AI checker, so we do look at that just like we do for plagiarism. So please be very careful if you're using any of those generative AIs. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email, call me, and we'll discuss what you're using and how you're using it. And if you are using it, how to cite it. There's lots of resources for this course. The textbook, the lab manual, both of those are free to students, and I've broken them up by either chapter or by lab report into the respective units versus uploading one big one for you to have to print out. There are PowerPoints for both lecture and labs and voiceover, so I do those lectures for you. When we get into the D2L, I'll show you here a little bit about where the calendar is so that you know when assignments are due, because again, lots of moving parts for this course. Even though I do my own lecture and lab videos, I do sometimes have supplemental videos out there because there's just some things. I'm just not a technology expert in all of these. So there are some people who make some great videos, and I will use those and give them credit as that as well. And then, of course, if you have not looked over the instructor information sheet for lab and lecture, please look at those. Again, they are separate. And then the instructional package as well to help you answer any questions about the percentage of each thing, how the grading works, where to find me, what's allowed, and those kinds of scenarios, and where do you go if you need accommodations. All of that's going to be handled in that instructor information sheet and instructional package. Now with that, let's take a quick peek at our D2L, just so that you know what you have to do when you first log in. What's that getting started module, and how do you open up those course materials, and then how do you get into the lab. So this is our D2L course, and a couple things I want to point out very quickly for you is that besides email, the best way I communicate with you as the students are through these news items, and I post them every single week and sometimes multiple times during the week. So please make sure that you are logging into D2L and to read these news items. If you like to clear them out after you've read them, that's fine. If I ever make an edit to it, I do hit update and it will open it back up for you so that you can see that I have made an update. I mentioned earlier about the calendar. That is found over here. I do keep all assignments, their due dates, etc., so that you can know what's coming up each and every week. So when you first get into the course, you're going to come up here and you're going to go to content. Now this is from my perspective, so it's going to look a little different than yours. You're not going to see lecture and lab materials. All you're going to see is getting started. And in the getting started, this is where all this information is that you need to get started. It's going to have that, as I said earlier, about instructional packages, knowing your instructor information sheet, so it's going to give you your schedules, information in here about tutoring, resources, testing center, all that's in this getting started. Once you read through all of that material, then you need to come in and you need to take this policy and attendance quiz. You just click on this and it will take you directly to the quiz. Answer it, score 100, and then come down and do your identification verification where you're taking a picture of your ID card so we can verify who you are. Once you complete these two items, then the course content will open up. And when the course content opens up, you'll see both lecture and lab materials. So let me talk you a little bit through the lecture materials. So if we go here at Unit 1, all the units are set up the same. They all open on the same date, every item in there. So even though you have 3 weeks to complete a unit, I do break up the due dates, but everything opens at the same time with the exception of the unit exam. As mentioned, it opens on Wednesday and closes on a Sunday. So little notes up here, and then there'll be lecture notes and PowerPoints. So this is going to be where you have your OER chapter to read. Then you'll see the PowerPoints, and then under those PowerPoints are going to be my lecture off of that PowerPoint. So just you'll see all of them. And then there's a whole module in there called the assignments, and this is where you can click on your homework, which we call checkpoints, and quizzes. So you can get those just here through this chapter. You can also obtain those checkpoints and quizzes by going up here to the assignments tab and going into quiz, or if it's a Dropbox or discussion, and you can find them by clicking here, and that will open all of that up as well. So for lecture, again, Each unit is going to open, all the materials are going to open on the first day of the unit, but then the due dates for those homework assignments and for those quizzes, etc., those are going to be staggered. The exam will open on Wednesdays, the last week that the unit is available, and it will close on that Sunday. Now, if we look at the lab materials, and everything for lecture is conducted through D2L. Lab materials. So in the lab materials, there is also a getting started sub-chapter here. So you can see labs, and then it says lab getting started. Go there first once the materials open, and once you get in there, then you're going to click on this virtual lab student tutorial. That is your first assignment in that virtual platform. So when you click on that, it's actually going to then walk you through the steps of how to register for the Connect platform. If you need any help on that, there is a PowerPoint here that McGraw-Hill, the ones who actually have that Connect platform, they put that together to help students know what they should be expecting when they log in. So before you do anything, make sure you have access to that virtual lab. It does require an access code. You can buy that access code either when you log in, and you can use your personal credit card to purchase it, or you can go to the bookstore and purchase it, especially if you use financial aid, and then they will give you an access code that way. But that's the only piece that you should have to purchase for this class, is the access code for the Connect lab. So getting started of the lab materials is going to get you into the virtual lab platform, and then you will find the weekly schedule and and my information sheet for lab. But each lab then is going to be broken down into lab materials, quiz assignments in D2L, and then the virtual. So again, after you get registered, you can go into the platform itself, or you can just come in and go through D2L. Quizzes and stuff that are through D2L, you'll find those here, and when you click it, it'll bring you up into the D2L platform. And then the lab materials, this is where you're going to find any reading, PowerPoints, etc. When you get into Connect, this is the way it's going to look. So after you get registered for the lab and it gets into there, then what you're going to do, so your first assignment in Connect is to come into this module, the intro, and then what you will do is when it opens up, you'll click on it and it will take you straight into that virtual lab assignment. But each week is the same as it is in D2L for labeling, and you can see they're all broken up. And then once you get into each week, those are going to be your virtual lab assignments. So in this case, you can see you do have a pre-lab, and then you have 3 lab assignments. And in this one, you don't have a pre-lab, it's an Endospore, but you have a post-lab. So each week it's going to vary just a little, but if you have any questions at all, let me know. So that concludes the intro. I know it's probably the longest video I have in the entire course, but thank you for watching it to the end. And if you should have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And let's have a great semester.